How long does someone have to underperform before it becomes a leadership problem? Is it just a few months, 6 months, a year? Well, try 7. Because I once inherited an employee whose performance issues had been known for almost as long. And his manager didn't address it, nor did the executive leadership who was responsible in the aftermath of his manager not taking care of it. They didn't address it either. And then when I walked through the door, well, guess what happened? Within about the first 90 days, I was expected to fix it. But here's the thing, okay? By then, we weren't dealing with just an employee performance problem. We were dealing with years of failed accountability. I want us to get into this topic today. Welcome to Crossroads and Catalysts. I'm your host, Shanita B. This is where we explore how a thoughtful, wise, and strategic perspective at life's crossroads can become a catalyst for meaningful change in your leadership and the direction of your life. So, I want to know, when does an employee performance problem become a leadership problem? I think it's definitely worth discussing that accountability is a two-way street. And while I think we know this inherently, when it comes to the actual practice of it, it can cause a little bit of resistance and hesitancy, and we have to be able to move past that, because it's not just the other person's problem to deal with, it's our own. And I think that part of that has to do with how we view accountability. I think we look at it through the lens of negativity and somebody being in trouble, and it's not necessarily about someone being in trouble. It's really holding people to a standard, whatever that standard is. And yes, maybe sometimes the standards need to be reviewed to ensure that they're not unreasonable and just all out wacky, but it's worth reviewing just to make sure that we are in alignment with the organization, that we are communicating clearly, all of those things, right? So I want to make sure that by the end of this episode that you will understand what accountability is and why it's so important, and that it's not just everyone else's issue to deal with. Okay. Um, and before we move forward, I want to make sure to remind you to follow the show so that you do not miss the notifications for the episode publications. All right. Um, I think it's interesting that we see accountability play out in the headlines, in uh, in radio, just about everywhere. And somebody's always calling for someone to be held accountable. Even when you look at politics, that's what you hear. And no one ever is. And so it's easy to get caught up in this cycle of just pointing things out and complaining about it rather than addressing them head on. And so that's what we're going to do today. Now, I don't know if most of you remember the Spider-Man movie, and this one was the one with Tobey Maguire. Peter Parker, we all know the story, right? Peter Parker he has this scene where he wins the fight, and then I'm going to call him the bookie because I can't remember the guy's name, the owner of the boxing match, or the match, refuses to pay him. And so he's like, okay, fine. So he leaves. And then someone else comes into the manager's office and steals the money and rushes past Peter Parker. Well, the manager who stiffed him screams at him, "Stop that man, stop that man." Well, and Peter Parker's just like, well, that's what you get. That's basically his attitude, until he gets downstairs and realizes that the same guy who robbed the guy who stiffed him is the same man who shot his uncle fatally. So there was an action. That's an example of accountability. And yes, there is a that's probably a stretch for this situation, but I wanted to make the point that there's there is always an opportunity to put a stop to something. Now, how far are you willing to go to do that? Are you willing to put yourself in danger to do that? Well, maybe not so. And surely and prayerfully and hopefully, that's not a situation that you will have to encounter in the workplace. But that's just a movie, right? Okay, well, what about real life? Real life. Because again, I think all of us are going to have to address something within ourselves and or with other people to call them to account for a standard that they did not meet, whatever it is. Okay. But my point in telling you that story about Spider-Man and Peter Parker is we will all have to answer for something. And if we don't deal with it right now today, it might actually come back to bite us in the butt. Because while that's just a movie, real life can be a little shocking, to say the least. And again, I'm not talking about the violent aspect of it. I'm not talking about somebody losing their life. But take, for instance, one of my colleagues was a high up executive, had a person on their team, and they didn't really hold this person to account. They didn't they didn't rein them in when it was known that this person would just kind of become unhinged, and not so much as just flying off the handle and being loud and disrespectful openly, but just putting pressure on people and saying things that were snarky and blaming people for things that were not theirs to own, and just doing things that were unprofessional. And this thing went on for years, but it was never addressed. Well, the organization went through a restructure, and they decided to promote this person into an executive level position. Now, it was not on the same uh, level as the boss, but they moved up. And lo and behold, within about a year, that high up executive was out of a job. But the person who they promoted into an executive position retained theirs. And then, of course, starts the complaining. Well, okay, at this point, it's too late to complain, because everything that you're complaining about today are things that you could have and should have addressed in the past as you became aware of them, but you chose not to. So now, instead of that person being out of a job, you're out of a job. And now that's something that happens pretty regularly. And this is what happens because we think that we're just passing the buck, or it's no big deal, or it would just be too much of a hardship to have to go through the process of replacing a person, and not even replacing somebody, because it doesn't always have to result in someone losing their job. Accountability does not have to always end that way. But because we have become so accustomed to thinking that we're just going to check somebody and just let them know, and we just have to get rid of them, we have made that part. Uh, it's easy in our minds, right? It's easier in our minds to move them out of the way and bring someone else in than it is to address whatever the concerns or issues are and have to continue to face that person every day. I don't understand it, but that's just kind of how it is. And so that's why we need to get clear on why it's important to be accountable and to hold others accountable, because remember what I said is accountability is a two-way street. Okay? So let's get clear about something. Sometimes the person who you need to hold accountable is not the underperforming employee. It's the person who's in the mirror. So look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, why are you refusing to manage the underperformance, or the lack of professionalism, or whatever the situation is? Why are you refusing to do that? And look, I get it. Situations can make you nervous. They can make you feel as if you are incapable of approaching it in the right manner. It can make you feel anxious and worried because you're just unclear and unsure as to how the other person will respond. Well, and I would say that if you have not built the relationship with the person, yeah, it might be more challenging to address it. And maybe your fears are based in reality because of that lack of relationship. But it's not too late to start to try to build the rapport that's necessary. But you still have to address whatever the situation is. You cannot allow it to fester and linger, because again, it can and it will come back to bite you. And this is one of those things where I haven't just observed these things happening. I've experienced them. So just like I mentioned in my opening, where I had a 7-year employee who had not been held accountable in the 7 years that they had been working. And by that, I don't mean to say that there was nothing that was ever said. But what I'm saying is, even what might have been communicated, you know that it was not understood if the person did not change, or if the boss, the manager who was responsible for holding this person accountable, if they did not follow up and follow through on whatever actions they indicated to that person that they would take if they did not see an improvement in their performance. And okay, how about this? That's just one situation. I stepped into another leadership position at a different organization and quickly found out that one of the members on the team was underperforming. And this person had been there for several years. The boss was displeased with the performance, and the skip level boss was displeased with this employee's performance. And so, why hadn't something already been done? Well, because number one, there was a lack of accountability. So, my responsibility was to come in and help to coach and mentor my direct report to address that concern. So, one of the things that you have to do when you know that there are some things that need to be addressed is you have to communicate clearly. And then you also need to do that in writing. So once it is clear that you've had this spoken conversation with someone, spoken conversation, you know what I mean. After you've had a conversation with someone, you need to notate that in whatever employee file. And it probably doesn't hurt to send an email with a recap and a summary of the conversation. And it depends, of course, right? Because you don't want to just come out the gate writing everything up and making the other person feel like they're going to be fired tomorrow if they don't get it together. That is not my point. You're going to have to exercise some discernment and some discretion, right? Because the point is to work alongside the person and indicate and show them, convey to them that you're interested in their improvement. And you want to do whatever you can within your power to aid them and assist them in that. Okay. But what I'm saying is, if you recognize that you have someone who is problematic, address it, let them know why you're mentioning the thing to them, and make sure you give them solid, concrete examples. And don't give them something from a year ago. Don't even give them something from 6 months ago, because this is another issue. People get caught up in wanting to address something now because they're so frustrated. And this is from years of the employee or the colleague not doing something, or doing something that was irritating, frustrating, embarrassing, underperformed, whatever the case may be. All of these things. And now you want to refer to something from a year ago. Again, we don't want to do that. You want to focus on what is happening today, maybe within the last couple of weeks, and address these things going forward. This is what's going to help you to hold yourself accountable and to hold them accountable. I'm hoping that this is making sense right now. And accountability should not be a scary word. Okay. And I'm not saying that it's going to be comfortable to have whatever conversation or to take the necessary action. It generally is not comfortable because, of course, we want to maintain some level of harmony in the workplace, or even in personal life, because it's never fun really to have to address something. But this is what is going to build not only the stronger relationship and build the rapport, it's going to build trust, and you're going to set a standard. Because when you hold people to account and when you hold yourself to account, You're setting the bar and saying, this is what the expectation is. This is what the standard is. And if we don't meet that, well, let's figure out why so that we can work through it. Okay. And like I said, don't come in guns blazing saying you didn't do this and you didn't do that and I didn't like this. Let's not make it personal. We want to remain professional. We want to stay focused on those things which are not subjective but objective. Okay. There's nothing personal about it because it's going to be uncomfortable and awkward enough sometimes without making it about someone's personality traits or characteristics. So stick to the facts. That's what this comes down to. Okay? Ask yourself what you can do next to raise awareness about accountability and to move it from being a negative to a positive. Okay. And I did an episode similar to accountability, similar to this topic, rather, not too long ago. So I'll be sure to link that in the show notes because I give a little bit more detail as to how you can carry out conversations and things that you can do to work through the accountability aspect of your leadership. This is a major part of leading other people. And if you are missing this component of leadership, you are missing out on some of the most effective growth experiences that you will ever have. It will sharpen you. It will make you better. It will make you more in tune to what is going on around you once you start to hold people accountable. But again, it starts first with yourself. Just remember that accountability is a two-way street. Okay. And if you're encountering a situation with accountability or any other type of crossroad issue and you're just not really sure what to do, then check out my What's Next Crossroads guide. Okay. This will give you some questions to help you think through where you are, getting really clear about it, helping you to also think about the options that you have so that you can take some steps or at least develop some steps to get you where you want to be. Okay. I will leave the link for that in the show notes. I appreciate you listening today. And again, be sure to follow the show so that you get the notifications. All right. So until next time, be thoughtful, be wise, be strategic. And remember, crossroads reveal who you are. Catalysts shape who you become. Every decision matters. So make it count.